In this presentation, you will learn about the critique of project homogenization as explained by Professor T.K. Oman. The presentation is based on the critiquing of the homogenization process from the perspective and writings of Professor T.K. Oman, a renowned Indian sociologist. There are 400 or so tribal communities of India which claim that they are the original inhabitants or Adivasis of the land. This claim is not accepted by the Hindu nationalists who see Aryan Hindus as the original settlers and label the tribal communities as forest dwellers or Vanvasis. The population of India speaks languages belonging to four families: Indo-Aryan about 73%, Dravidian 25%, Austro-Asiatic 1.5%, and Tibeto-Chinese 0.5%. Dravidian languages, which are mainly spoken in the four South Indian states, namely Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Andhra Pradesh. The Dravidian movement, however, opposed the Aryan domination and saw itself distinct from the Aryan Hinduism. In the British census on India, religious categories like animism, tribal religions, primitive religions were counted. This was nearly 2 to 3% of the total population. However, after 1951, these were clubbed under the general religious group of Hinduism. In a way, the distinct identity of tribal religion eroded. The Hindu advocacy of homogenization has been tried out in different ways. In 1960s and 1970s, the phrases used were Indianization, and now it is called Hindutva. Hindu nationalists insist that the advocacy is disassociated from and devoid of any narrow religious context and content, but refers to a lifestyle common to the people of India as a whole. Hence, a Hindu is one who follows this lifestyle. If lifestyle includes matter of dress, food, worship styles, art forms, marriage and family patterns, there is very little common even to the Hindus of different regional linguistic areas, not to speak of the different religious communities of India. It cannot be denied that there exists a civilizational unity within the whole of India and that of South Asia too. Hinduism. One of the theory of usage of the term Hinduism is that it was invented by the colonizers to refer to the inhabitants of the then India across the river Sindhu. However, the terms have changed its meaning and context altogether and is being used as particular religious collectivity, belief system, and ritual practices. These concepts are problematic in themselves. According to the Hindu doctrine of creation, the Brahmins emerged from the mouth of the Creator, Kshatriyas from the hands, Vaishyas from the thighs, and Shudras from the feet. This Chaturvarna or four-color scheme does not even account for the untouchables belonging to the fifth Varna. So how is it justifiable to use such concepts and claim ideas of religious nationalism in pluralistic countries like India? This becomes unhealthy. Homogenization in simple words means to make uniform in structure or composition. Here the reference is made towards culture or religious homogenization. Let us now look at the critique. The process of cultural homogenization operates through religious groups and developing values of religious nationalism. Religious nationalism is nothing but imposing the lifestyle, practices of the majority over the minority groups. Let us now look at the strategies used. This operates through simple strategies like the original vision of the founding fathers, which actually promotes brotherhood, relativism, and is revived and edited and modified to suit personal agendas and then spread out. It itself has lots of problems, Uman points out. Several strategies are invoked to manage this tension and camouflage this contradiction. First, denying that caste system and particularly untouchability are parts of traditional Hinduism and insisting that these are latter-day accretions resulting from praxeological aberrations rather than imperfect doctrines. Second, conceding the need to scissor away these negative accretions through gradual piecemeal reformism. Third, organizing reformist collective actions and mobilizations, for example, intercaste dining, collective worship, to fraternalize the deprived and sap them of their protest orientation. However, given the fact that the constituency of the Hindutva ideology is largely confined to the twice born Hindus of the Hindi belt, it has failed to gain the confidence of the Dravidian Hindus, the other backward classes, the scheduled castes, and the scheduled tribes, together constituting the majority of the Indian population. Thus, the Hindu project of homogenization is bound to remain limited in its scope unless it frontally grapples with the issue of institutionalized inequality within Hinduism. It has limited scope for Dalits and tribes and their development, and thus does not lead to inclusive development. Problems with religious nationalism. Religious nationalism is problematic as it carries within itself the seeds of religious fundamentalism. Fundamentalism is a threat and a big problem for peaceful functioning of democracy. It is not only a problem for countries like India, but also to different countries where there are populations with minority religions. The Hindu nationalist project of homogenization is caught in a trap of Hinduism's internal contradiction because homogenization implies not only uniformity but also equality. The Hindutva version of homogeneity, however, while appealing to the non-Hindu minorities to shed their cultural identity, assimilate with the mainstream and become full-fledged Indians, is either reluctant or else ambivalent to grapple with the institutionalized inequality within the Hindu social system as embodied in the institution of caste. Religious diversity brings legal pluralism, hence it is healthy for a society at large. Let us look into the issue of beef ban. What is sacred to one group isn't sacred to another, so imposing it for all is problematic. For example, Muslims, Christians consuming beef has been a common practice. Brahmins in Bengal have been meat eaters. Kashmiri Pandits are meat eaters too. So having a uniform civil code rises in favor of the conservatives than on the reforms of the religious communities who speak of development. Census. Homogenization is a problem as it creates a hegemony through which the minority religion lose their identity in the assimilation process. The assimilation and annihilation can create problems to the diversity of the group, thus making the group lose the pluralistic feel and disturbing democracy. It can give rise to intergroup inequality. The concept of relativization, whereby the old is being revived, is in itself problematic. For example, if we observe the Hindu culture has several practices which are inhuman, like sati, untouchability, specific diet patterns, dress patterns, etc., in the name of religion. So, if religion is said to be revived, the idea of old being beautiful, pure, isn't in itself being problematic. This partial relativization in the name of religious texts can be seen as fundamentalism. This can be a threat to several indigenous practices. If the indigenous practices vanish, then the cultural habits may vanish and several new social movements could emerge. He argues that religious nationalism and democratic polity cannot coexist harmoniously, particularly in a society characterized by religious diversity. Thus, T.K. Omen views the ideology of homogenization as not only aimed at the standardization of values, norms, and practices, but it also implies the revival of obsolescent traditional values, norms, and practices that are not relevant to the present, and the imposition of those values on others, both deviant co religionists and religious minorities. This is so because the reference point of homogenization advocated by religious nationalists invariably relates to the original vision and practices of their founding fathers, ignoring the context of the latter's advocacy. On the other hand, Chatterjee views how the nationalist movement was problematic with reference to Bengal. He also points out how the nationalist movement tried to control through the spiritual realm the Indian society. I hope you have a better understanding of T.K. Uman's thoughts on homogenization. Thank you for watching the presentation.